Welcome back to another Post Media Senators panel. I'm Bruce Garrioch of Post Media Ottawa, and I'm pleased to be joined by the legendary play-by-play duo of Dean Brown and Gord Wilson from TSN 1200. Guys, thanks for joining me. The NHL draft round 1 is Friday night, 2 through 7 on Saturday, continue through Saturday, and you two will be part of TSN's coverage on the weekend. We just spoke with Pierre Dorion. Gord, sounds like he'll keep that number 10 pick. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, sounds like he'll keep the number 10 pick, but my thoughts are anything can happen. I don't think there's any question that the Senators are open for business and open for whatever scenario would be best for them. And if that means dealing that 10th overall pick, then I'm guessing they're very, very open to doing that and looking to improve the hockey club. I think, I don't want to say this club is in a must-win, must-make the playoff situation this year, because I still think postseason play is a long shot for the hockey club. They are getting closer, and the temptation to improve almost overnight would far outweigh the options of waiting 2 or 3 years before the 10th overall pick materializes into somebody that will help the team make the playoffs or help the team while it's still in the playoffs.
You know, Dean, one of the things, and we're going to get to Joey Daccord next, but one of the things in listening to Pierre Dorion rhyme off the number of goaltenders in this organization, I don't get any sense whatsoever that they're going to take a goalie with that number 10 pick.
Well, you know what? The only thing I would say, though, Bruce, is the one little caveat when Pierre Dorion was talking about it is that he said that if there's a Vezina caliber goaltender available when we pick, well, we all know that there's 2 goaltenders that almost everyone who prognosticates about selection order has 2 goaltenders who are in their top 10, and most people believe that both of them could be Vezina caliber goaltenders. So I'm kind of the opposite. They have great depth, which is a great bargaining position if you want to draft one and then in a year or two move one of your goaltenders. You can get great value for them because Ottawa's got some great depth at that position. But I look at it the other way, Bruce. I think that little tell from Pierre Dorion tells you that either of those 2 top 10 guys are available at 10. I think they are taking a goaltender. And I think one of the reasons is that there's so much unanimity amongst scouts that those 2 are very high level, not guesswork. They're very high level. Whereas a lot of the other players in the top 15, if you have looked at the skaters and how much the draft order has shuffled on a lot of lists just in the last, well, since the World U16 or the U18 championships down in Texas, that shuffled a lot of order, which tells you how volatile the order is and how there's very little outside of the top 3 picks. There's very little consensus on who slots where. And so I would say that I don't discount them taking a goalie at 10 if one of those 2 guys is available at number 10.
Well, it will be interesting to watch, and we've just come out of the expansion draft, and as I mentioned, Gord, they did lose Joey Daccord. Just your thoughts on that. Myself personally, I thought they should have protected Daccord, because I kind of felt that Gus the Bus caught lightning in a bottle, but we all know what people think of that. What are your thoughts?
I have no issues with protecting Philip Gustafsson. I think that was the wise choice for the hockey club. So, like Dean, I'm going to disagree with you and on that subject. It's unfortunate that they've lost Joey, but let's keep things in perspective here. Joey Daccord was drafted 199th overall in 2015. There were only 12 players in that draft who were drafted after him. He's done a terrific job of making sure he could become an NHL goaltender, and did become an NHL goaltender. But unfortunately for Joey and perhaps the organization, the sample size was rather small because of a high ankle sprain that knocked him out of the rest of the regular season when he had only a handful of games under his belt. Along comes Philip Gustafsson and gets the quality starts that he desired, wanted, needed, and took from basically the injured Joey Daccord. And look what Philip did. He took full advantage of that. I think he should be given full credit for excelling in a situation that he had to excel at in terms of his own personal growth is concerned. He did just that. He proved to the organization that he was an NHL caliber goaltender, and boy, I wouldn't pencil him out for seeing lots of action this upcoming season at the NHL level. I think he's perhaps right now penciled in as the starter in Belleville, but I wouldn't be shocked at all if he plays a lot of games in the NHL this year. Remember, when he was drafted in the second round by the Pittsburgh Penguins, then their assistant GM Randy Sexton told me they drafted him with an eye for him to becoming the Penguins' #1 goaltender. And when Ottawa acquired him, I was reminded of that, and there's still that potential to be a #1 goaltender in this league for Gustafsson.
And Gord, as long as he doesn't spend too much time sitting in the backyard this summer, like he said, and he will in his last interview, he'll be fine. He's getting ready for the season. Dean, two guys who were left unprotected, though, whose future in Ottawa you might have to wonder about is if Joey Dadanov and Chris Tierney. Now, I believe that Dadanov will be back. I don't think they'll trade him. But Tierney just doesn't strike me as DJ Smith's kind of guy.
Well, I think there's a couple of things. I would agree with you on Dadanov. He did not have a great season last year, and thus I think it would be difficult out in the marketplace to be able to move Dadanov and get a decent deal for him because he underperformed last year. There's no question about that, and there were lots of reasons for it. But at the end of the day, he was struggling with some injuries and being away from home and quarantining, and there's a whole bunch of reasons why things didn't work out well for him. But they didn't work out well, and in the marketplace, they are not particularly concerned about why you didn't perform. You just didn't perform. So I agree with you. I think it would be harder to try and get some kind of decent value for Dadanov if you were to take him to market. In the case of Tierney, I think there is some value out there in the minds of some general managers, what he can do for your franchise as far as filling a role on your team. But I think you're right. I think in the style of play that DJ Smith wants to have here, I'm not sure if Chris Tierney fits. I don't think he can play at the pace on a regular basis that this team wants to play at, number one. And number two, DJ Smith is a guy that wants every player on the team to be physically and emotionally involved in games. And that's not to say that he wants everybody to go out and drop the gloves and fight every shift. That's not what we're talking about. But, you just look at if you want to just look at one stat and not even an advanced analytic stat, just a basic stat, hits. How many people in a game does Chris Tierney make contact with on purpose?
Yeah.
It's one of the lowest on the team. And for the first half of the season, he had 6 hits in a half a season of hockey. Mm-hmm. And that's just not the way that DJ Smith wants his team to play. And he's not requiring a guy like Chris Tierney to go out and put people through the boards. He's not expecting Austin Watson, Brady Tkachuk style hockey from Chris Tierney. But you have to be physically involved in some way in the game. And so I think you're right. I think if you want to encapsulate it, I just think going forward, he just might not be a DJ Smith kind of player on this team. But that doesn't mean he doesn't have value in the league somewhere else.
Well, exactly. And guys, one of the things that has been talked about an awful lot in this offseason, and Gord, we'll start with you, is the fact that the Senators would like to get a top-end center and perhaps a defenseman who can play with Thomas Chabot. If that's going to happen, go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that's exactly what this team needs, obviously. I honestly think, based on the body of work that we saw from Josh Brown and Josh Norris, 12 games that we saw from Shane Pinto, I think in this system, in this organization, this team has a 1 and 1A center locked up position here from those two players. I honestly think that
sorry to interrupt. Can Pinto do that next year, though, Gord?
Well, that's the big question here. Perhaps not, which is why they've got the eye out for a veteran center who can help this hockey club immediately. And if that means Shane Pinto gets, third or fourth line duty, gets an opportunity to see some power play time. Obviously, he showed that he can excel at the penalty kill role. If he gets those types of minutes, or even be a #1 center in Belleville. We saw how that benefited Josh Norris, AHL Rookie of the Year, when he was Belleville's #1 center the year before last. The same could apply to Shane Pinto. The dozen games that we saw him play in, though, certainly showed that he can play at the NHL level. So I think if progression goes correctly within the organization, Josh Norris slides down to their number 2 guy, and they pick up a quality player, a quality centerman, a younger guy, but has lots of game left. And the move to get Derek Stepan last year has been widely criticized, and for good reason. But I think a younger Derek Stepan would have been a perfect fit for the organization. He just unfortunately got hurt and was slow to come around here to find his game, which eventually ended up having him injured, and he couldn't find his game at all. So that type of player, a veteran player, but who has obviously a lot of game in him, is certainly going to help Ottawa down the middle. And as far as the right side to help Thomas Chabot, yeah, without question. Nikita Zaitsev will fit in there to start. There's no doubt about that. Artem Zub might slide in and, at training camp, be given the opportunity, and he might be the perfect fit for Thomas Chabot. But I don't think there's any doubt the organization needs a top 3 defenseman before the season starts.
Yeah, Dean, last thought to you. Does that come through a trade here in the next few days before the draft, or do we maybe see that in free agency, which I believe begins July 28th?
Either. I don't think there's a preference, either way. Ottawa does not have asset management problems. They don't have cap problems. So they're not one of those teams that's in a situation where if they want to get a top 3 defenseman, they've got to move money. They've got lots of space. So I think it's really wherever that player is, that's where they go after him, and they try to land that player. And if it's free agency, great. And if it's through a trade, that's fine too. They have the assets to be able to make a trade. They have the cap space to make a trade. I think it's all about trying to make the right deal for the right kind of player, and I think more importantly, and we're going to find out ironically after, whatever they do to fill that role, if they can fill it. But when they do, we're going to see in who that player is, what the thought is, because with what they have coming, and Sanderson and JBD is, he may be in the NHL this year, but maybe in the AHL. If you look 3 years down the road, whoever they go to get to fill that spot, we're going to have to look at whether that is a buffer player or whether that's a long-term commitment. And I have a feeling it's probably going to be a player on a 2, maybe 3-year maximum contract, because they have an awful lot of skill on the way, and you have to make room for it when it gets there. So, you have to be able to make room for those players, which means you usually aren't in the marketplace looking for a defenseman that you're going to commit to for 5 years.
While Gord holds up a spatula, Dean, why don't you tell us what you two are going to be cooking up for the TSN 1200 coverage this weekend of the NHL draft?
Oh, we've got tons of coverage on the TSN 1200. Friday from 8 till 11, it's going to be JR, Steve Lloyd, and yours truly. And then Saturday for rounds 2 through there's 27. No, there's 2 through 7. From 11 a.m. until 2 p.m., Lever Sage, Graham Creech, and the young blonde one, Gord Wilson, will have your coverage all on TSN 1200.
Well, thanks for joining the Post Media Senators panel. And you can read all our great coverage in Post Media on the weekend, and I'm sure people will enjoy this panel. Thanks for joining me today, guys. Take care.